Welcome, everybody, to episode 175 of WordPress Weekly for Wednesday, December 17th, 2014. I'm your host, Jeff Chandler, joined by Marcus Couch. And Marcus, this is our last show of the year.
Yes, and I'm very excited and very enthusiastic about today's show. We're just going to kind of give a rundown of the news and talk about what's been happening lately here in WordPress, and then we're going to take some time off for the holidays. So everybody better listen to the entire show because this is all you get for the entire year.
So for everyone out there listening, we'll be back again starting January 7th, 2015 for an all-new year or season of WordPress Weekly. And we'll see. I'm working on a couple of guests. We might have some folks there on the 7th. If not, Marcus and I seem to be pretty awesome to do the show on our own.
We've been on a roll lately, that's for sure. We've been hitting a stride. And those out there, thank you very much for all the nice reviews you've left Jeff and I in the iTunes store. We greatly appreciate it. We've brought WordPress Weekly up into the top 10 when you search WordPress in the iTunes store, so keep it up. We greatly appreciate that.
Indeed. So this time last week, I mentioned that it was highly probable that we would be talking about a release of WordPress today. Unfortunately, it's been pushed back by at least another day. In fact, earlier today, WordPress Release Candidate 3 was pushed out, which means what ended up happening was there's some things that came up, some bugs and other issues during the Release Candidate 2 stage, and instead of pushing everything out as is, they decided to take 24 more hours to iron some things out and do a dry run. So I think it's highly likely that tomorrow we'll see, Thursday the 18th, we'll see a release of WordPress 4.1. And a couple of things you can expect in that release is the 2015 default theme, something new called a session UI, where now if you are logged into WordPress via multiple devices or even in different browsers, you have more than one session going on. If you visit your user profile, there's a button there where you can log out of all other sessions except for the one you're currently in. So that's actually a neat little security feature in case you logged into the back end of your WordPress site from, let's say, the library, which I don't know why you would do that, but if you did that and forgot to log out, when you get home or you access on your mobile device, you can just hit the button, log out of every session except the one you're in. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And of course, there's plugin recommendations now. If you visit the plugins, add new, there's a new tab up there called recommended plugins, which uses the data from thousands of other websites, compiles which plugins they're using, and gives you compiles their similarities and recommends plugins to you based on that. And there's a host of other features and improvements, including the new and improved distraction-free writing mode, which, by all accounts, I think some people will see as a distraction in and of itself because of the way it fades in and out, but we'll have to see what kind of feedback we get on that, although I appreciate the fact that it's not going to be turned on by default. If it was, I think, oh man, the support forums would have blown up like, what's going on here? You know, a lot of people would have been upset. So I'm glad they decided to leave that off by default. So by the time you listen to this, unless you're listening live, you should see an upgrade prompt in your the back end of WordPress. So go ahead and you'll be able to upgrade and check out all the goodies.
Test it on a stage site first. Make sure all your stuff runs. Make sure all your plugins and themes are compatible. Then when everything's cool, when all your stuff's partying together nicely, then go ahead and put it on a live site.
Exactly. So a few months ago, in fact, back in September, we covered some news about a serious vulnerability in a very popular product that's sold on ThemeForest and bundled with a lot of themes sold on ThemeForest, called RevSlider, or the Slider Revolution. And security had discovered a pretty severe security vulnerability in the plugin, and the plugin author had patched it, but unfortunately, for whatever reason, several websites out there did not upgrade their version of the Revolution slider. So this past week, news came out from Security. They've noticed a lot of attacks going on, and over 100,000 WordPress sites have been hit with what they call soaksoak.ru, or soaksoak for short, and it's malware. It's a malware campaign, and the campaign has resulted in more than 11,000 domains being blacklisted, which that number is probably increased by now. So there's a couple of things that the malware does, but I think the overall, the most disappointing thing for me is that there's months of advance notice. How do these sites end up being attacked? And I think somebody had mentioned in the comments of the article that I think is a great point, where a lot of these themes, which contain the bundled version of a plugin, and since there's not a automatic updating system built in yet to ThemeForest and these various products, like from CodeCanyon, a lot of developers probably handed off the site to the client. The client had no idea what to do. They're using Revolution Slider, and I bet that's a majority of the websites that were taken advantage of that succumbed to the malware. So I think, again, it brings up the fact that definitely should avoid bundling things in themes whenever possible. Of course, that goes back to the argument of what should be a plugin, what should be in the theme, and I know that's sort of a gray area, but in this case, especially when you don't have an automatic update system in place where you can quickly patch it and get it out there to everyone who's using it, definitely shouldn't be bundling things that can't be easily updated through a system. And Marcus, I think you use a couple of products from ThemeForest. Do you have any clients that who have sites that you've had to fix because of this?
I've not had any that I've had to fix. However, I will say that Revolution slider is bundled into probably 30% of the themes that I use. And at first, I don't like it. I think it sucks. I like Layer Slider, and that I bought as a premium plugin, but I bought that on my own because the guys always update that thing. I haven't heard of any vulnerabilities of that. But the problem lies, and even when I'm not using that plugin, if it's hard jammed into a theme, then
the code's still there.
Right, I have no way to block that. I mean, I feel like there should be some kind of plugin that blocks Revolution Slider code. I mean, that's serious. I mean, really, it's kind of like a plugin condom, I guess. But
jeez, oh man, I almost want to break out the rim shot, but
hey,
we'll save that. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and a lot of the people who, in fact, when we covered this, when Sarah wrote about this in September, Envato, or the people of ThemeForest, found out that Revolution Slider was in at least, I think it was over 1,000 different products or different themes on ThemeForest, and that's a lot of themes. And considering that the impact that ThemeForest has, and that's probably the #1 marketplace for developers and users alike, that is a lot of people.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's really, I think it's really a testament to how vulnerable an entire marketplace can be when everybody's so dependent on using one plugin as a crutch rather than a tool, rather than just a little add-on that adds a little spice to it. They use it as a basis of their entire theme set.
So if you have succumbed to this malware campaign, some people, there was a lot of people on the WordPress.org support forums that were helping each other out and telling each other that you only have to replace these files with clean ones and you're okay. That's not going to work, because this thing puts in backdoors in various files in various places, and people who just replace some of the infected files notice that within minutes or within the hour they were reinfected. The best thing you can do is restore the site from a clean backup, preferably a recent one. Hopefully everybody out there has a sane, good backup strategy, and then immediately update the plugin, or better yet, get rid of it or change themes so you're not using it. But other than that, I've never had to clean up a website that's or have owned a website that succumbed to a malware campaign. And I treat it like a virus on my computer. Once it's there, I figure there's going to be some remnant of there, even though I've cleaned it up. I mean, the next thing I'm doing is reformatting. That's exactly what you have to do here with a WordPress site that gets this type of malware.
No, you're right. You're right. And a clean backup strategy is important. And I always keep 60 days worth of backups on hand just in case something like this happens.
You never know when you might need them.
Yeah. So good plugins that do backups constantly.
Backup Buddy, that's a good one.
Yeah. I use that CMS Commander, which manages all your sites. It saves all my backups to Dropbox, which is awesome.
And that's probably even better too, not just on your local drive, but you could save them off-site to a third-party storage area. So that's probably an even better backup solution.
Yeah, because it can't be accessed. It's stupid to put your backups right on the same server. Those files could be infected just as easily as anything else.
So last week you had mentioned during our plugin picks of the week segment near the end of the show, you had mentioned something called Story for the Win, or Story FTW, and now I see it's actually on the plugin directory.
Hey, I made a promise and it came through. How about it? Yeah, the guys over there that have developed it, Justin Sternberg and Patrick Shanahan, they put it out in the repository, and it's really stupid.
There you go.
These things that is just
hey, let's start
it's
over.
revolutionary as
let's
far
start
as
over for a second. Let's see. Where did I? Okay. Who's calling?
Never had a phone call interruption on the show, have we?
No.
It's somebody I don't need to talk to.
Airplane mode.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that, everybody.
All right, let's.
Very unprofessional.
I'm gonna edit this out. So let me start. Let's see. So Marcus, you had mentioned last week during our plugin picks of the week segment that there's a plugin out there called Story for the Win, or Story FTW. You were a big fan of it.
Yes.
You said that pretty soon it would be on the directory, and lo and behold, you've kept your promise.
Yes. Well, I haven't, but Justin Sternberg and Patrick Shanahan have. And Justin, this is his 23rd plugin. So this he's Mr. Wizard when it comes to making plugins. Let me describe this for you. It is a full-screen, mobile-first storytelling plugin. It does text, images, GIFs, video backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's amazing that I just took a stock 2014 theme, did one of these stories, and made that the homepage, and you can just flip right through it. It's pretty amazing. So check it out, and if you do check it out, then please leave them a review and start it off with, "Hey, I heard about this plugin on WordPress Weekly," and then give your opinion. We'd really appreciate that. So check it out, Story FTW in the repository.
Excellent. Maybe that's a candidate for review here on the Tavern pretty soon. We'll have to see.
All right.
So Jetpack has released a new major version, 3.3, and it introduces a new centralized dashboard for managing multiple WordPress sites. Now let that sink in for a little bit. So 3.3 builds on the support introduced in 3.2, where you can, which has centralized posting abilities on WordPress.com. So WordPress.com has this dashboard now, and you can control your WordPress.com sites. You can publish posts to multiple, to any of the sites that you want to operate from WordPress.com, this dashboard. Well, now with Jetpack 3.3, you're able to manage plugins on these different sites that have Jetpack installed and activated. You can initiate plugin updates. You can even turn on automatic updates for any plugin on a per-site basis or in bulk. So essentially, what this does is it puts Jetpack, or at least Automatic, in the realm or in direct competition with services like Managed WordPress, WP Remote, and Infinite WordPress. Now, those folks, services, and businesses have been around now for a while. This is all they do. what Jetpack offers right now is not going to in any way, shape, or form take these folks out of business. But I do wonder how far they're going to take it, because it is available for free, and I just wonder how much more they're going to build onto this, or if you're just going to keep it lightweight and simple instead of building out a full-fleshed solution such as a managed WordPress, or maybe even like what you use, CMS Commander.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that are out there, and as time goes on, we're going to all find our own thing. We'll probably have an app someday that can just alert us, hey, I just updated the plugins on this site for you.
So if you're looking for and a lot of these other websites actually have free accounts. They usually limit it to one site or maybe even two sites. But this here, I mean, between Jetpack and WordPress.com, if you have a lot of WordPress.com sites or just a lot of Jetpack-powered websites, you can now do a couple of things and manage them in certain ways from WordPress.com. And it'll be interesting to see within the next year or two how far they push the remote site management features of both Jetpack and WordPress.com. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what the future holds in that. And 2015, I think, is going to be the year of multiplicity, where you can handle multiple sites at once.
So in the State of the Word address this year at WordCamp San Francisco, Matt Mullenweg had highlighted the importance of internationalization and was quoted as saying, if WordPress is going to be truly global, truly inclusive, it has to be fully available for other languages, end quote. And part of that announcement during his presentation is that there was going to be fully localized plugin and theme directories available, accessible within the admin of WordPress 4.1. Essentially what that means is whatever language you're using in WordPress, you'll be able to search and find plugins in that language, themes and plugins, which is really cool. Yeah. So in that vein, there's been a major change to the WordPress theme review guidelines, where each theme that is submitted to the directory has to have every string within that theme has to be fully translatable. What that means is it has to be able to be easily the strings of what is translatable within the theme. And so with this move towards fully localized plugins and themes, it'll make it really easy for other people to translate those strings into their language and make the theme available in their language. So with this new requirement, it's sort of a major milestone in expanding WordPress's global reach. Because before, localization and internationalization for a theme was just up to you. It was just your choice. Who knows? I don't know how many people have taken advantage of it. But now, with it actually sort of being a requirement for a theme to get into the directory, it's a major milestone. And now we're going, from this point on, every theme that ends up being approved and in the directory will be fully translatable. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction.
And not only that, but the theme developers that actually partake in all of that and adhere to the new guidelines, imagine how much more popular their themes are going to be with a complete global translatable audience for your themes. I mean, I think that the download count is going to be exponential once this happens.
That's a great point. And what happens if you don't know Japanese and you're getting support questions in Japanese? What happens? So, what would be really cool is if, they ask a support question in Japanese, but you're able to see it in English. It's somehow translated on the fly, or you can easily translate it into English. And I know you can sort of do that with Google Translate, but Google Translate doesn't do a very good job of translating things to make them legible or readable. So I wonder what will happen on that front.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tough enough to do the common language stuff that we're all used to as far as, the back-end terms of WordPress and translating that. Support questions, yeah, that's a whole other thing. But, something I would say probably half of the time that I have questions about particular plugins, they are from someone in, a different country that's got a different native language than, me here in the United States. So the language gap is not that big, but I think the the big problem is if WordPress is only in English, then other countries that have not just support questions, but I'm talking about like the backbone of small businesses in other countries. It's not just the developer who maybe speaks English that's going to be making the site. It's going to be maybe the owner of the site or the business owner or somebody like that that needs to get in the back end and just make simple changes. And if the language barrier prevents that, then that's a lost opportunity for WordPress to help that business owner to gain market share because they're using WordPress.
Well, and if people are interested, more interested in terms of the steps WordPress is going to be taking, both WordPress and the surrounding ecosystem, I highly encourage you to do a search on WordPress.tv for Andrew Nason's presentation on the future of WordPress is global from WordCamp San Francisco. It's fantastic, and it really sort of sheds some light onto how they're going to work everything out. And he even proposed in that in his session, how cool would it be if they're using the site in WordPress in Japanese, or he leaves a comment in Japanese, but because I'm using the English version of WordPress, I see his comment in English. And somehow, what if it could work out where I could respond to him in English, but he sees it as Japanese, and then it sort of removes that language barrier.
Well, it sounds like a comment Google Translate plugin in the making for somebody out there that's got some ingenuity to them. It sounds like that could be done right now.
So we'll have to see what happens there in the future. But no, our buddy, I like to call him our buddy, my buddy, your buddy, everybody's buddy, Buddy Press. How about that? Yes. Buddy, one of the very active developers for both Buddy Press, BB Press, and even GLAP Press, John James Jacoby, has successfully reached his crowdfunding goal of $50,000.
Yes.
So he had started a campaign for development on all three projects. He ended up with $51,500, and for the first 6 months of 2015, he will be working full time on all three, Buddy Press, BB Press, and GLAP Press. And in an interview on WP Tavern, he mentions that he's going to try his best to split his time evenly between all three projects and figure out which items and prioritize which items would have sort of take the least amount of time but have the most amount of impact. So he's really looking forward to prioritizing and maximizing this time. And just congratulations to him. And I think it speaks volumes of both. It's a public recognition, sort of in a way, of what he means to the community. And he's being funded by the community to continue working on all three projects. And I wonder if this is this an example of what we may see, what's to come? Will we start seeing other developers, someone like Triple J, who is just in love with, have a fascination with or a passion for WordPress or a plugin or some other project, and in order to really spend some time on it, maybe they have to do a crowdfunding campaign for $10,000 or $15,000. I wonder if this is the future of open source development.
I think so.
Someone's going to end up having to pay for this free open source development, apparently.
It's a perfect model. It's a community-based model, and that's what our whole mantra is about. I personally think that this story is one of the most influential of all of 2014, as far as putting a stamp or a footprint, so to speak, on a moment in time of WordPress. This is the first. This is the moonshot. This is the first guy to be able to do that kind of thing on that grand scale. And hopefully he's got, some excellent fruit that we can all benefit from come harvest time.
I like that analogy. Yeah. Fruit and harvest. I'm getting hungry. So congratulations to J-Trip, and I'm especially looking forward to seeing what comes out of it for BB Press. But I think everybody is excited to have him working on all three of those projects full time. just nose to the grindstone. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it because BuddyPress is kind of like that.
You've mentioned it before. It needs work.
Yeah, it needs some work. It needs some work. So if anybody wants a list of what work it needs, I'm there.
Well, I'm sure if you put a list down and submit it to him, he may put those on his list of things to do. You never know.
Right. Okay.
So just a quick shout out here. Google announced that they were going to retire their Google Earth API. It will retire December 12th, 2015. So if you're using the API in a plugin, you may want to remove it because you won't be able to use it anymore after December 12th of next year. And apparently support is being removed, or they're retiring the API due to it being developed on a plugin framework which Chrome and Firefox no longer support, and it also has security issues. And over the past 6 years, the API has experienced dwindling support across multiple platforms, especially on mobile. So I did a quick search on the WordPress plugin directory for Google Earth, and there's at least 3 pages worth of results, but a lot of them, I think, more or less have to do with Google Maps, and maybe not so much Google Earth.
Yeah, and you should be using Google Maps anyway. But, man, what has Google made lately? Good. Nothing. They just take stuff away.
Chromebooks. I don't know. Who knows? Doodles. They make a great doodle every day.
Yeah, maybe Chromecast, but as far as like innovation, they've done nothing.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. That's why we're all using Bing now. Let's all go to Bing.
No,
Bing that.
I mean, it sounds like they're just going to cut back to Google Apps and the browser search and basically mobile search, and that's it.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't want them to do what Yahoo did, and with the whole peanut butter analogy, where you get spread too thin. Google went through a phase where they started launching this and launching that, and their employees have, they could spend 30% on whatever project excites them, and sometimes it becomes internal or external projects that everybody else can participate in. And I think just over time, I think Google is pretty good at saying, okay, time's up. We no longer see the numbers. Let's kill it, instead of letting it dangle on, on life support. I'd rather see them kill it than have it be on life support.
Well, I didn't agree with that in terms of like Google Reader. I thought that was an excellent application that just for no reason.
Yeah, you make a good point there with Google Reader. I'm sure a lot of our listeners probably agree with you. I'm wondering, when are they going to kill FeedBurner? Isn't it time, or I wonder how many people still use that?
I don't know. I was always a firm believer that you have to control your own feed, and that's what drew me to WordPress to begin with, was that it did inherent RSS feeds out of the box, and I didn't have to
a few years ago. I mean, the initial reason why I chose to use FeedBurner is because it told me it was the only way to really get an accurate, describe accurate. It gave me a number of how many people were actually subscribed to the RSS feed. And it also had some pretty cool, nifty features that you could bolt on to the RSS feed. Of course, I remember back in the day, which is like, 6-7 years ago or whatever, where everybody had those RSS, those chiclets. Hey, look how many I got. My number is bigger than yours, and now you don't see them anywhere.
Yeah.
No one cares.
I was never a stats junkie. I never cared about those things. It's the community response that I measure, but there's a lot of things out there Google-wise that you probably shouldn't be hooked to anyway, besides analytics on your website. So let that be a lesson to you, and you developers out there that want to do these cool Google plugins. Someday, that thing's going to be digital dust.
Yep. If you build your business on an API, somebody else's API, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, unless it's Salesforce, then you're good to go.
Unless it's Salesforce. So our last story of the day, this is really cool. ManageWordPress.org, which is a website that the community can submit news stories to, and people can upvote them. And it's a really cool way to discover new WordPress sites that are not so large. they've released a new tool. If you go to managewordpress.org // I don't know, one of those two plugins, you'll find a new section of the site. Or if you just go to managewordpress.org, click on the plugins button on the top menu, it'll take you there, and it's pretty cool. So it has some algorithms to it. It's got a couple of different ways that you can discover new plugins. And the one thing I like most about it, with the WordPress plugin directory, the official one, it's pretty hard to discover up-and-coming plugins. With the exception of the recently updated category, there's no real way to find sort of the plugins that are in the middle. You either find ones that are brand new or ones that are very popular. It's hard to find the ones in the middle. So what this new service does by Managed WordPress is it only lists and deals with plugins that have 100,000 downloads or less. So that provides an excellent opportunity to see the up-and-comers before they're not brand new, and it's before they become globally popular within the directory. And there's a couple of different things in here. For instance, if you go there, there's a couple of different metrics they use. They have something called plugin quality, and the quality is determined on a couple of different metrics, such as the last updated text, compatibility, support, rating, plugin and author popularity, and other plugins from the same author. Obviously, they're going to have to do some improvements to the algorithm, because right now a plugin that has 4 great reviews can outrank one that has 200 reviews, but maybe they're not all 5 stars. So I think there's a couple of things they're going to have to do here. But they also have a plugin comparison tool, so you can name one plugin and you can put it up against another plugin, and you can see how their download numbers compare and how the other metrics also compare. And Marcus, being the plugin aficionado that you are, I know you've said on the show numerous times how you want different ways of discovering plugins, you know, through favoriting and lists and things like that. What do you think of this?
It's good. I like that it has the number of downloads last week, so you can kind of see the trending possibilities as far as the different plugins. It's pretty cool. You know, my thing, I like to see plugins that have less than 20 downloads. You know, I'm more of the indie DJ to their mainstream, so to speak. But hey, man, the more the better. I'm a plugin freak, you know that. So
a couple of times when I've actually checked out some of your plugin picks of the week, and I've said, well, these are pretty cool. So I download them, I use them, and they're broke. It's either a bug or they don't work right. And so that's why I think it's important that there somehow be a way to just find the plugins that maybe have a 1,000 or a couple of thousand downloads, because at least that way it's probably been battle tested and it will work. It's a higher likelihood of working out of the box versus something that's, you know, just came out of the oven.
Right. No, you're right. And a lot of the things that I test on blank stage sites or some of those. So sometimes they have theme incompatibilities. That's always the case. But I love Managed WP. It's a cool site to get all kinds of news that's going on, and I've seen even some of my own stories submitted there by other people. So it's something that is of great benefit to the community.
So a couple of features that he's going to be working on in a future iteration of the service is a simpler plugin comparison, which I don't know how much simpler it could get, although you do have to know the name of the plugin or do a search form in order to compare them, so maybe he can work on simplifying that a little bit. But he's going to allow multiple plugins to be compared at once instead of just one against the other. But what I think is cool is they're going to include support for the WP Vulnerability Database, which is a service that has just a listing of the latest sort of security announcements regarding plugins. So I think it's going to be really cool when you see that type of security data added to the plugin details page. So maybe over time, A, you can see if there's been any documented security announcements or vulnerabilities for that plugin, but B, you can also see them over time. And if you come across a plugin that has 3, 4, or 5 of them, you might, that might help sway your decision. You might want to stay away from that one.
Yeah, yeah, you have to you have to really be cautious of these things and your sources and what you're looking for, and always test stuff, no matter what. Test it.
So overall, I just think it's a great implementation. It's sort of a subsection of the WordPress plugin directory, but without the plugins. I think it fills a void, and you have to keep in mind that all the data that they have is based on the WordPress.org plugins API. So they're limited in the types of data that they can obtain from the official directory. But what they've been able to do with displaying that data and only limiting things to plugins that have 100,000 downloads or less, I think has filled a void, a needed void, and I can't wait to see what they have up their sleeve for this. And some people have said that they would like to see something like this, but for themes.
Yeah.
I wonder how that would work, how that would look like.
Well, you just do a feature comparison. What's responsive, what's not responsive, the kind of slider does it have, or just like in the repository where you have these check boxes where you can determine some of the features that you're looking for to qualify for a good design that is best for you. Same thing, same comparison.
So congrats to Vladimir Perlevac on launching this pretty cool tool. Feedback I've seen for it has been very good, and can't wait to see what you have next. And with that, hey, speaking of plugins,
yeah,
Marcus, you've got 3 of them for us this week, and why don't you tell us about them, and we'll wrap this baby up.
All right. Well, the first one, it just came out of necessity for me. It's called HTTPS Mixed Content Detector, and what it does is it attempts to identify different sources of mixed content warnings. Now, what I'm talking about is, especially for those of you that run e-commerce sites and you've got a SSL certificate, sometimes what happens is if you have an error or you're maybe embedding you have a new plugin that's pulling data from a widget or something like that, there may be a warning that happens, and up in the address bar where that padlock is, sometimes it has a line through it, or it's red, or it has a no symbol on top of it, which would give the indication to your customer that the site is not secure or that some data may be going to and from an unsecure site. So what this plugin does is it looks for all of those kinds of errors that may trigger within your website, and then it lets you know exactly where those errors are so that you can pinpoint them over time. So another great thing that it does is it has a log in which you can view any errors that may have come up for any of your customers. So understand that by implementing something like this, you're not only finding site errors that may cause drop in your Google rankings, but this could also be costing you money because people may not want to buy because of that fact that they see that little slash next to that credit card entry form. So this is a great plugin for finding and discovering all of those particular errors.
Excellent.
Next one is called Performance Tester. Now this is a really nice one because it gives you a really quick snapshot of the performance of your website. I'm talking about load time, I'm talking about different how many scripts and things like that you're running, and page size overall. And it's nice because this version of the plugin is really simple. You can do a quick screenshot and send that over to a client if you want to talk about how before and afters as far as site changes or upgrades or any of that kind of thing. And it also helps to test maybe between WordPress versions. Is it faster? Does it load quicker even though the size is the same? Let's find out. So it's really cool. There is a premium version of it as well. I haven't tried that. The free one worked just fine for me. So you can find it in the repository. It's called Performance Tester. And finally, Jeff, ManageWP also has within their stories kind of a dig-like interface as far as social voting for news. And this plugin is called Idea Factory. And I've looked for plugins like this myself, and I can tell that the developer has as well and got sick of it and decided to do just that. So they made a plugin where users can submit new ideas from the front end and then vote on them.
Yeah, this is what was created by Nick Haskins of ASAP Story Engine.
Yeah, so currently though it only allows a user to vote once per idea, which that's cool, and then it locks them out from voting on that topic again. This is great for like feature requests or something like that for a plugin. The problem is it's logged in users only that have access to this idea submission. So he indicates that's just for now, that's going to change very soon. Maybe though for support issues and things like that, I guess logged in users would probably be a good idea to start with anyway. So it's called Idea Factory, and I think it's a great new plugin you guys should check out.
You know, I remember there used to be a service where you could, I think it was a mix between putting in your own ideas or topics for posts and taking submissions from the community, and there's a widget in the community could actually vote on which topics or posts they would like to see next. You could sort of do that with Idea Factory. It could be a very simple WordPress, self-hosted way of letting the community, your readers, sort of tell you what it is they're interested in, what they would like to see you write about next. So I mean, that's the different ideas in terms of the input you could get from the community or your user base are limitless.
Absolutely, even down to, dare me to do something, and the most votes, I'll do it at the end of the month on YouTube.
And this sure beats the Idea Factory. The way it works sure beats taking like a survey or something, which is boring. This, you just vote on one idea and that's it. You're done.
Right, or multiple ideas. Hey, I'll throw a point to this, point to this.
So that's going to do it for this week's episode of WordPress Weekly. I do want to remind everybody, depending on when you listen to the show, that this Saturday, December 20th, is WordSesh 3, the third annual 24-hour virtual WordCamp. So beginning at, well, I want to get this right. 2400 or 0000 UTC? I don't know. I think it's 8 or 8:30. I'll have to double check. I hate time zones, especially international ones. But at this point, December 20th, there's going to be 24 hours of WordPress. So there's going to be sessions, 1 per hour, 15 minutes devoted to questions or what have you. There's going to be a couple different roundtables as well. I'll be participating. I think it's the last session of the day, the WordPress News Roundtable. So I'll be joined by Brian Krogsgaard, the folks from Dreadcast, and one other individual. Matt Medeiros, I think, might be on that show as well. I have to double check. So definitely check that out. It's free, and you can enjoy an entire 24 hours worth of content from the comfort of your home, your bedroom, outside, mobile, the bathroom, wherever you have internet connection. It's a really cool event, and looking forward to participating in it again this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I won't be around to see it. I'll be gone, but away from the internet this weekend. But otherwise, I'm looking forward to seeing replays if they're available.
Everything is going to be recorded and available for playback immediately following the event. So all for free. Yes, all for free. Excellent. So, as me and Marcus have said, this is our last show for 2014. I want to thank everybody for listening, for writing reviews, for listening to our call to action and submitting emails to us, letting us know that you're listening to the show. I mean, it was pretty darn cool to know that people from all over the world are listening to us on this show. That was pretty humbling and a cool experience to find that out. But that's it for this year. We're going to just keep it going, keep it rolling. We'll have some new guests on next year. Maybe we'll even try and get a few more people on that you may have never heard of before. See if we can't get the ball rolling on that. But that's about it. And Marcus, any parting words for our end of the year episode?
It's been, 2014 has been one of the most fun years for me as far as WordPress. going to WordCamp, hanging out with you for a couple days was fun. I so look forward to the next year and some of the things that I've got planned, and some of the the topics that I'll be talking about. And it's not plugins, but I want to thank you for the opportunity again this year, and everything that the tavern has done. It's been amazing as far as what you and Sarah have put out as far as content this year. I think it's really been a staple to the entire community, so I want to thank you for that. But to the listeners in the community out there that have supported Jeff and I throughout our endeavors here at WordPress Weekly, we want to thank you personally. It's the great people out there that keep us going and keep us doing things week after week, and we're very grateful for all of the response that you've given us. And like you said, I'm really looking forward to leaning into the new year and coming into this with a whole new perspective and really kind of riding that wave. And hopefully everybody listening out there is ready for all the new advances and technologies that we're going to find in WordPress in the coming year.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of WordPress Weekly. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes on wptavern.com. Just click on the WordPress Weekly category from the top menu. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jeffro, that's JEFFR0. Marcus?
You can find me at my website, marcuscouch.com, and find me on Twitter at marcuscouch.
So again, we'll be back with you on January 7th, but until then, have a very safe, merry, happy holidays from me and Marcus and our families to yours. We'll speak to you again on January 7th. But until then, have a safe and enjoyable weekend, everybody.